What garbage can you burn, throw on the ground, or carry out while on the trail? You're gonna carry out every single.
Leave no trace.
Leave no trace, bitch. What's going on, everybody? We are two experienced Appalachian Trail thru-hikers. And by experience, I mean we both hiked the entire trail. It's literally how we know each other. This is my boy Flossie. We met on the trail. We met in Northern Virginia, and we hiked pretty much the entire second half of the Appalachian Trail together. And yeah, this is going to be a Q&A video. I posted a poll in the Appalachian Trail Class of 2020 Facebook group asking you guys to post some questions. I basically said, hey, if you could ask a successful thru-hiker any question at all, what would it be? And we're going to be going through those questions today. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are, smash that subscribe button if you are going to be thru-hiking in 2020, because I post a lot of AT prep videos. I love this stuff. So also maybe smash that like button as well. Shameless plugs out of the way.
Smash it.
Smash it, folks. Don't just hit it. You got to fucking smash that shit.
Smash it.
All right. We've been having a few yinglings here. Loosening up a little bit. And so with that said, let's do some questions. So the first question here is from my boy Matthew. Matthew's question is, how much did it suck and would you do it again? So as far as how much it sucked, I would say the experience as a whole definitely did not suck. I wouldn't be making like videos about this if it sucked.
It was the best 5.5 months of my life.
It was, I think that's a good way to sum it up. However, there were certain parts that sucked. There were certain days that sucked, certain sections, but as a whole, it didn't suck. I don't know. What do you think about that? Did it suck, Flossie?
It's just like life, man. Some days just don't go your way, and other days do. So all in all, it was the best experience of my life, but you have your rough experiences for sure.
Exactly. It is just like life, honestly. I mean, this sounds like so cliche, but I mean, you're literally living on the trail for, 4.5 to 5.5, 6.5, whatever months. And so if you were to take any 6.5 month stretch of your life, there's going to be like some bad days in there, and the trail is no different. So yes, some parts definitely sucked. Some parts were amazing. The experience as a whole was very much positive. Samantha asks, what are the must-dos or must-stop places along the trail, i.e. hostels, restaurants, etc.? So I feel like we can kind of break this down into a couple sections, honestly. Let's start with hostels. What were some of your favorite hostels on the trail?
Boots Off Hostel, for sure. In Tennessee.
I actually didn't stop there. What was that in?
That was in Tennessee, Hampton, Tennessee.
Isn't that the same place that the station is too? 19E.
I don't
remember either, honestly, because I didn't stay there. But what about Boots Off made it like a noteworthy place for you?
For one, I was suffering shin splints there. So it was a nice place to chill out and just relax. And it was fairly new. So they had sweet bunkhouses, and the environment was just chill there.
For me, I'm going to say it again. For me, or maybe I won't. Right, maybe I'll just include all these fucking
Let's start it over again.
Dude, it's good. For myself, I think my favorite hostel... There's a lot of good ones for sure, but I think my favorite one was probably the Notch Hostel in Lincoln, New Hampshire. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of hostels that met this criteria, so there wasn't anything specific to that place, but it was just like a good vibe and a good price, everything a hiker needed. So if you make it all the way to Lincoln, you should definitely look up the Notch Hostel. As far as restaurants go, that was aggressive. I was a big eater. I ate a lot of food, and so it's kind of hard for me to like pinpoint like one specific restaurant. I will say, I don't even remember the name of it, but there was a really good diner in Damascus, Virginia. I think it was just the Damascus diner, honestly.
That diner in Carlisle was the shit.
That was good. See, the problem is we're thinking of a lot of like restaurants, but we can't think of like the name of the it's just like, oh yeah, remember that time in X town that we like ate this food and like we can't come up with the actual name of the restaurant.
Let's just say in Carlisle, he got his second trail name, which is 3 Entree, because he got 3 entrees in a row.
I'm a big eater. What can I say?
It was breakfast too. My favorite meal of the day.
Jessica wants to ask, what is your favorite section, and what was the reason that a majority of the people got off the trail? We're going to take this in 2 parts here because they're 2 wildly different questions. Jessica, I see you trying to sneak 2 questions in there. That's literally the point of this, so I don't know why I'm trying to touch. All right. Honestly, I think my favorite section was the White Mountains. I had hiked quite a bit in the Whites before I started the Appalachian Trail, and I was hiking with a group of people that had never hiked in the Whites before, and so when I got there and I was revisiting all this stuff that I had already seen, I almost got to see it the first time again because I was kind of living it through them. So for instance, when we were up on Franconia Ridge,
I would have to agree exactly. I know what you're going to bring up.
This dude right here was absolutely blown away.
I cried. Honestly, I cried when I was on Franconia Ridge because it was so beautiful.
He shed a couple tears. It was beautiful.
The White Mountains were my favorite.
In fact, this is what it looked like on my Instagram story.
Yo, Flossie. Yeah. Tell the good people what's going on right now. Well, we're on Franconia Ridge in the White Mountains. Don't get no better than this, baby.
These guys were just super stoked, and the fact that I was able to kind of show them an area of the trail that almost felt like home to me, I guess. It was very familiar to me. And kind of seeing them just be super stoked on it just felt really good for me.
At first, the Grayson Highlands were great because, one, I hit it on a beautiful day, and I don't know, it was just, I've never been around wild horses like that.
Neither have I, for that matter.
I've never been so close to them. It was just sweet that, and also there have been a lot of trouble with bear in that area, and I didn't encounter one, so that was good.
That was good.
But out of the whole trail, I would have to agree with you that the Whites were the best. They were just phenomenal views, and just once you broke the tree line, it was just, you could see forever. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, if you're from New England, then you might have hiked in the Whites already. You've probably at least seen Mount Washington and stuff. But if you're not, the Whites are unlike any part of the rest of the trail. Drink to the Whites.
Drink to the Whites.
Let's go. Darren. I made another video and I mispronounced that same exact name. Darren asks, what came closest to making you leave the trail?
Oh.
And I know you have a good one for this.
I have a good one. So I was in Georgia. It was the beginning of the trail, and I remember the shelter. It was called Blue Mountain Shelter. It was a very cold night, and it was raining. It was pouring the whole night.
What day did you start again?
I started April 15th. It was raining, and the wind was blowing 50 miles an hour. It was blowing the rain right into the shelter where I was staying, and there were actually people outside of the shelter staying in hammocks and stuff, and their hammocks were literally swaying back and forth. I don't know how they were staying out there. So it was just me and another guy in the shelter, and I had all the clothes I brought on the trail I had on me, and I was just in my sleeping bag, and the guy next to me, he must have had norovirus or something, but he was throwing up the entire night.
Ouch.
And I was thinking about how bad of a night this was, but then I was looking at him throwing up and thinking, wow, this could be way worse for me. And they actually had to go up there and get him from the shelter because he couldn't make his way down. But when I got down, I almost thought about quitting the trail right then, but I got to a hotel in, I don't know what
Hiawassee?
Yeah, in Hiawassee. The Budget Inn, and took a shower and got rested up and everything, and I was like, you know what, I sacrificed a lot for this trail. I quit my job. I saved up so much money for it. I'm going to keep going, but that was definitely a moment where I thought about quitting, and I almost did. So
I'm a fucking savage. I never thought about quitting. Next question. Megan wants to ask how to get back to where you got off the trail after hitchhiking into town, especially in more remote areas. So the answer is literally in the question. You pretty much just hitchhike. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Most towns have shuttles, so like if you want to take a shuttle, you usually, not always, usually can. Do your research. Don't rely on my drunk ass for that shit. But you can usually take a shuttle back. However, most of the time, for us at least, we would hitchhike. If you can hitchhike in, you can usually get a hitch back. The only caveat there is that sometimes there were towns that weren't a straight shot on the road, like back to the trail. That's kind of hard to explain, so I'm gonna put like a Google Maps thing up so you can see what I'm talking about. But usually in those circumstances, it was easier to hitchhike into the town because the traffic was like going that direction. But if you were to hitchhike back out, it was hard to get a ride because it wasn't like a straight shot. You had to like turn on a couple of roads and stuff. But yeah, usually if you were just hitchhiking in, you would hitch back out. And if you were staying at like a hostel, and even hotels rarely, but sometimes would have shuttles for hikers. So Riley asked, is the party culture as big as they say it has become? Because all I'm hearing now is that a group of kids in their 20s will sweep the trail like a disease. Well, I feel like we're not in a very good position to answer this question because we were both in our early 20s and we were both drinking beer right now. I will say, though, while we were actually on trail, we were both fairly serious. Yes, we did have the occasional beer while we were in town, but for the most part, we weren't the type of hikers that would prioritize partying over hiking. We didn't yellow blaze at all. We both hiked the entire trail. We weren't really taking multiple zeros in a row to drink and nurse our hangovers and stuff. So if you're really worried about that, I think you're kind of being misled a little bit. Yes, people will party on the trail. People will drink. People will smoke weed, illegal drugs. I was going to say illegal drugs there, but that makes it sound like people are like smoking crack on the trail, which is not the case at all. It's weed, people, so it's not that bad. And it's entirely avoidable. It's mostly going to happen at certain hostels in towns.
That's what I was going to say.
And you can usually avoid it. Like, it feels like, I feel like I'm not really making a very convincing argument here, but for real, like once you get out there and once you start to interact with other hikers, you're going to kind of know like which hostels the partiers are going to and which hostels have no alcohol policies. That's usually just right in the guidebook and stuff. So I don't know. What advice would you say? What advice would you have as far as like avoiding the partying?
If you're actually on the Appalachian Trail to hike the whole thing, then the people who are partying, honestly, you're going to leave in the dust because you're actually hiking the whole thing and they're out there to party. I would say that most people are, if they're going to drink a little bit and do all that stuff, it's going to be mostly at the hostels. You're not going to see many people out on the trail partying because, for one, they don't want to carry a bunch of beer out there because it's heavy.
I would focus a lot more on like making sure you're ready to hike 2,000 miles and then worrying about some douchebag 20-year-olds drinking. That being said, I think we should drink to that.
All right.
Is that making me a dick? Probably. I don't care. I hate hiking. Taylor wants to ask, is it possible to hike without hitchhiking? Now, we haven't talked about these questions beforehand. Somebody commented, Tom commented, sure is, call a shuttle. And it is true. I would say 90% of the towns along the AT have shuttles. Yes, if you are absolutely terrified of hitchhiking, like it is possible. You can do the Appalachian Trail without hitchhiking, but it's going to be very inconvenient for you a lot of the time, and I really think you should reconsider that if you're really terrified. And to be clear, I get why you're terrified. Like for someone who's never hitchhiked, like you probably fucking should be terrified. Like obviously, like that it's not something that is easy for a lot of people, but Personally, I would say that you should research how to hitchhike safely. I'm actually thinking about doing a video on this soon. And you should hitchhike. What is some basic hiking etiquette that people new to hiking may not be aware of? So I'm actually also thinking about doing a whole video on this, and there's a number of videos on this already that are out there. So if you just like watch Dixie's like how to not be a jerk on the trail video, that also talks about some of this stuff. But for the most part, it's mostly just common sense. Like just be respectful to people. Hiking specific things, I would say, don't set your tent up in a shelter unless you know for a fact nobody else is coming and it's like late at night. Don't shine your headlamp in people's faces if you can avoid that.
That was the one I was talking about.
Yeah, that's a big one.
If there's an area that you're sleeping in where there's a lot of bear activity, please hang your food bag.
Yes, definitely.
Do not put it in the shelter where other people are sleeping.
Meg wants to know, how did you motivate yourself on day 3 of rain/feel sore to hike and things like that?
Honestly, it was personal for me. It's going to be different for everybody else.
Very true.
I live in Georgia, but originally I'm from Maine. So I started in Georgia and I was hiking home. So I just always had that vision in my head of me summiting Katahdin with my dad, which eventually I got to do, which was awesome. It was a milestone in my life. So that was always what I had in the front of my mind, what I thought about every day, honestly. So
I had thought about thru-hiking the Appalachian Trail for about 6 years before I actually got the chance to set foot on Springer Mountain. So again, it just comes back to your reasons for thru-hiking. If you want it bad enough and you don't get injured, because obviously if your body can't hike, then there's nothing you can do about that. But other than that, if you want it bad enough, you can complete the Appalachian Trail. And so you just got to know why you're hiking, and you're going to have that reason to fall back on when shit hits the fan, when things are getting tough. If you really know why you're out there, you're going to make it.
for sure.
What garbage can you burn, throw on the ground, or carry out while on the trail? You're going to carry out every single
Leave no trace.
Leave no trace, bitch.
Do not burn any trash, please. That was the old school ways of doing it.
And especially, what garbage can you... This is definitely a troll, dude. What garbage can you throw on the ground? Absolutely fucking nothing. Nothing.
Especially not your dog shit, please.
Your dog shit. What concerns me most are those stinking ticks and Lyme disease. How big of an issue are they? Did you carry doxycycline? I think that's how you pronounce that antibiotic. I'm not exactly sure. But first of all, don't you have to get a prescription? You can't just carry
You should be more worried about ticks than you are bears.
Yes.
Which is the next, what I think people worry about the most.
Definitely. Once you start to get to the mid-Atlantic part, say Northern Virginia, up until pretty much the rest of the trail from there.
If you're going NOBO.
If you're going northbound, of course. You can spray your clothes with permethrin. Just Google it. I don't feel like going into all the details, but it basically just kills ticks. It's proven to be very effective against ticks. And in my opinion, the most effective way of preventing ticks on the Appalachian Trail, and I think you're going to agree with this,
Yes.
Flossie,
I know
is
exactly
just
what you're going to say.
check yourself every single day.
If you're hiking with a group, what you do at the end of every day, you take your shirt off, you have them check your back. We were very persistent on this.
We were.
For sure. We would take our shirts off, have everybody check our backs, and check your, what they like is your waistband. They like the warm places.
They also like the armpits.
The armpit.
In fact, can you actually check my armpit real quick?
Stinks, dude.
The only times that I ever found ticks on my body were right after I walked through fields. So check yourself at the end of the day. Also check yourself every single time you walk through a field. There's a lot of fields in the southern part of the Appalachian Trail, or anytime you touch a lot of brush. And if you do that, maybe use permethrin as well, you're most likely going to be fine. Because most people on the AT, I hate to say it, but they don't check themselves at all, which is bad advice.
Yes.
I think that's all we got, dude.
Yep.
That was good.
The wise words of Ice Cube.
The questions were good. I don't know if our answers I mean, our answers were good. Yes, it was good. It was good.
We're experienced hikers.
Trust me, we definitely hiked the Appalachian Trail. Thank you. I'll drink to that. Will you drink to that? Let's drink to that.
It's gone, but
Oh, you're done.
Imaginary drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cut.